It's almost as if the Democrats have a different goal, isn't it?
I almost spit out my drink as you said that. Yes, it almost is that way.
It almost feels that way.
I don't know what it could be.
Right. Well, let me tie a couple of things together. Do you remember when Stacey Abrams, a couple of weeks ago, said something incredible about inflation? Listen.
I would assume, maybe incorrectly, but while abortion is an issue, it nowhere reaches the level of interest of voters in terms of the cost of gas, food, bread, milk, things like that. What can a governor, what could you do as governor to alleviate the concerns of Georgia voters about those livability, daily, hourly issues that they're confronted with?
But let's be clear. Having children is why you're worried about your price for gas. It's why you're concerned about how much food costs. For women, this is not a reductive issue. You can't divorce being forced to carry an unwanted pregnancy from the economic realities of having a child.
Okay, stop. Now, maybe I'm old-fashioned, but I never thought I would ever hear an American political party declare the answer to inflation is to kill your kids. I mean, isn't that what she's saying?
Abort your way to prosperity.
Right. Now, if you want to understand that, I want to play something that was said this weekend from President Biden. Cut 3.
The biggest thing is, though, that we have to change what we are, those things that affect the environment.
Okay, I barely understood that, but he was saying the main priority here is the environment and climate change. Okay, now how does that explain what Stacey Abrams said? Ha ha ha, I'm about to give you a decoder ring. So, Jason, lead researcher on my staff, when he heard Stacey Abrams say that, he decided to Google 2 words, inflation and abortion. Let's just roll the dice. Let's see what's happening. You wouldn't believe what Google pumped out. Activities relevant to the study of population policy for the United States. You see, long before the cult of climate change and before there was the global warming, there was global cooling. But before there was global cooling, there was the population bomb. Okay? This is about, early 1960s. Progressives were all on board with the cult of population control. This is American eugenicists, okay? They were respected by progressives and tyrants all over the world. These were the guys, back in those days, in the early 60s, these were the same guys that had come from Germany that were doing all kinds of experiments. And they were respected for their knowledge. So we started to read the memo, and I think it reads like a script from a horror movie, but it reveals what the left truly stands for. Whether they remember their origins or not, I'm going to just give you this memo. And the first part is directly from the first page, and I want to quote it exactly. This memorandum is responsive to your letter January 4th, seeking ideas on necessary and useful activities relevant to the formation of population policy, defined as legislative measures, administrative programs, and other governmental actions that are designed to alter population trends. So right off the bat, kind of makes you wonder, wait, was the abortion thing really, was that about women's rights? Or was it about some post-apocalyptic strategy to control population? Well, it appears that at the time, they blamed American families, but not all families. Just families they wanted control of. Okay? Listen to this quote. To justify an explicit U.S. policy now of encouraging a specific universal limit on family-sized, as distinguished from proposals aimed selectively at welfare recipients and racial groups. Wow. So listen to this. The minorities, the poor, that's who they were targeting. The people on the left claim to care about the poor and minorities. Kind of makes you wonder about LBJ's Great Society, right? And his war on poverty makes you wonder why the real effects of ensuing massive welfare state ended up making people poorer and breaking up families. And those families, those mothers being single, now having to have abortions. Wow. The memo goes on to mention a mass wave of contraceptive handouts was the preferred method. But, this is the part I find interesting, quote, effective contraception is efficiently distributed to all those who want it, and if abortion is available on demand as a backup measure. So, abortion on demand was not even their main plan. It was the backup plan. But I thought it was about women's rights. Now here's where we get to the Stacey Abrams weird comment about inflation and abortion. It references inflation as something that goes hand in hand of full employment and thus to accept relatively high or at least not preventable unemployment levels as necessary. Yet more women enter the labor market under conditions of full employment, and the relationship between employment of women and lower fertility seems well established. An examination is needed of, in effect, the question of how much inflation could or should we risk to achieve lower fertility. Let me unpack that here. For one, they wanted women in the workforce, not for equal opportunity, but because, as it says in this study, women tend not to have so many babies, so fertility goes down. And they thought that all of the women getting jobs might spike inflation, which it did. The price of housing doubled. You had two incomes now, so everything doubled. So they figured we have to measure this, the party of virtue. The memo comes up with an attachment that listed other proposed measures by population control experts. Now, it never said that these were actual plans by Planned Parenthood. These are other proposals that they included. Restructure the family, postpone or avoid marriage, alter the image of the ideal family, compulsory education of children, encourage increased homosexuality, educate for family limitation, fertility control agents in the water supply, encourage women to work. Now, these are a few, and they get nuttier and nuttier. Now, I'm not saying that Planned Parenthood had planned to do any of this, but it shows to what lengths the academics were willing to go. Fertility control agents in the water? How many Democratic flag bearer issues can you find in this memo? Compulsory education of children. How many of us have wondered why they are claiming their kids or our kids as their kids? And they do not want you, and we excuse it saying, well, they don't want to, because the unions are blocking it because then they'll lose the jobs. Is it that? Why are they ramming sexually explicit comprehensive sexuality education into our school? Is it encourage increased homosexuality? Because that's what it seems like the LGBTQ 2+I lobby is fighting. They want more homosexuals. It's not you want rights. You got rights. You won that. Why the hypersexualizing of kids and exposing them to drag queens in schools and libraries? Why? Educate for family limitation. Who's wondered why they've shouted, destroy the nuclear family? Encourage women to work. Isn't workplace gender discrimination illegal? So what's the fight really about there? Regarding the education, they keep referencing both kids and families. Check out this quote from the full memo. Quote, in this area, it seems particularly important to distinguish between education and indoctrination. Whatever may be the merits and effectiveness of a truly educational effort, An indoctrination campaign may well have the only negligible effects on fertility values, but may provide unintended support in building public opinion, which seeks legalized compulsory fertility control for selected groups, and I'm quoting, particularly welfare recipients. The admission here is insane. Indoctrination, they admit, has its bonuses, especially on poor people. Google the words, until they change the algorithm, Google the words abortion and inflation. You'll find the whole memo. So when I played cut 3 from Biden, play it again, please.
The biggest thing is, though, that we have to change what we are, those things that are affect the environment.
Okay. Have you noticed that the policies that they are pushing put the environment over people? Right now, common sense would say, we're about to go to war with Russia. We must have oil. We've got to open up oil fields and pumping and gas lines. You've got people that are going to freeze to death in Germany and all over Europe, and they won't open up and full power their nuclear power plants. Why? Why? It's almost like it's Malthusian. It's anti-human. Yeah, not a lot has changed. Not a lot has changed. This is Planned Parenthood in the 1970s. This is what they were saying behind closed doors. Good heavens, what are they saying behind closed doors now?